Thermochemistry, chapter introduction. Before we even begin this chapter, you need to make sure that you know how to do certain skills that are going to help you out with this chapter and make it impossible to do it without. So make sure, as always, that you can do stoichiometry. Make sure that you know your unit conversions. These aren't things that we're going to necessarily cover inside the problems, so you need to make sure you can do them ahead of time. And then lastly, name compounds. We're going to occasionally just throw out the name of the compound, and if you can't convert that to the formula, you won't be able to do the problem. Luckily, if you don't know how to do any of these, that's okay. You can go check out the videos online or, of course, your book, or come get help. Just make sure you do it before moving on to the problems in this chapter. So first off, what are we going to do in this chapter? We have several goals throughout the chapter. The main principles that we will be covering is understanding energy and its transfers, discussing our first law of thermodynamics and all the problems that are associated with that. That'll be a very large portion of this chapter. And then a part of that will also be calculating enthalpy for chemical reactions. And then finally, define and use very simple calorimetry, which is actually a part of all of the other sections. Bond enthalpies will also be determined, so we'll get to talk about the energy that, as we'll say, stored in bonds. And then lastly, we'll do a bit of calculating and comparing lattice energies. That part will be mostly based on conceptual, not so much calculations. So before we move on to the videos covering the actual material, let's talk about how this chapter is going to progress. We're going to start with very simple definitions of each concept. It's going to feel like I'm giving you almost a middle school level definition. And that's just to give you an overview of everything that we'll be doing. And then we'll be iteratively going through and going more in depth with each topic and then bringing them all back together at the end. This entire chapter is very integrated with each other, and so we can't just cover individual things. We have to kind of talk about them all together and then more in depth